Welcome to everyone here today. My name is Teresa Martin, and I can't begin to say how delighted I am that we've come to this point. So I want to officially welcome you to the Construction Completed celebration here at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy, Friday, June 14th, 2013. And we're here to celebrate the region's new 300-plus miles of fiber optic network. This is an effort that brings state-of-the-art digital infrastructure to the Cape and the Islands, the South Coast, and the South Shore. The OpenCape Network and CapeNet are delighted to have you all be part of this day and to thank you for your ongoing support. Before I get started, I just want to take a moment to thank the many elected officials who are with us today, and if you can feel free to wave as I say your name. Governor Deval Patrick, thank you very, very much for being here. Senate President Therese Murray, thank you again. State Senator Dan Wolf, thank you. All the state reps who are here today, Sarah Peak, Cleon Turner, Vinnie DiMacedo, Brian Mano, Dave Vieira, Randy Hunt, thank you, all of you. County Commissioners, Mary Pat Flynn, Bill Doherty, Sheila Lyons from Barnstable County, and Leon Brathwaite from Dukes County, thank you all very much. And then I just really quickly want to run through some of the many selectmen and counselors who are here, and you don't have to applaud until we're all finished. I want to thank our host town, Bourne, Jerry Ellis, Peter Meyer, and Donald Packard for being here. I want to thank the chair of the Cape and Islands Selectmen and Counselors Association, Linnell Grumman. I want to thank Councilors Deborah Dagwin and June Daly from Barnstable, Selectman Florence Selden from Chatham, Councilor Dave Dennis from Fall River, Selectman Rebecca Moffett and Mary Pat Flynn from Falmouth, Selectman Ed McManus from Harwich, Selectman Austin Knight from Provincetown, and Selectman John Kennan from Sandwich. Thank you all. So I just want to really briefly set the scene here. Today is an incredibly exciting day, and it's a milestone day. And for me, just speaking for me personally, it's a somewhat emotional day that marks the end of a phase that began 7 years ago today, almost exactly to the day. On that June day 7 years ago, about 100 people who were incredibly frustrated with not being able to meet their business needs and their professional needs and their community needs because we didn't have infrastructure here, met at the Cape Cod Community College. And everyone that day shared their pain and their frustration. And we acknowledged by the end of the day that we just couldn't sit back and wait for someone else to take care of our region's very real infrastructure needs. We realized that we needed to find solutions to keep our region competitive, and that all of us needed to work together to make it happen. And I remember a couple of moments. I stood up in front of everyone, and in my kind of like little goofy way, I waved my hand around and I said, okay, if you're like here to complain, go home, because we're not here to complain. We all know things aren't good. But if you're here to figure out how to make it work, stay, because I know that we can. And I remember that Dan Gallagher that day also shared a favorite quote of his, something that Robert Kennedy said, quoting an original George Bernard Shaw line. Some people see things as they are and say, why? I dream things that never were and say, why not? And by the end of that day, all of us in that room had become dreamers who were also determined to do. Ideas began to coalesce, and 7 years passed. 7 years, a blink, it was 7 years. And today, those ideas have grown into something very real, something constructed and ready to rock. The network celebration today is celebrating a network that stretches from Provincetown to Providence, across Plymouth and Brockton. It touches 37 towns right now, leaving the interesting potential of how can that be leveraged in the future. It provides real state-of-the-art 21st century infrastructure to southeastern Massachusetts, South Coast, Cape Cod, and the islands. And it happened not because any single person did something. It happened because we all worked together. We rose above what we all know we like to squabble among ourselves in this region sometimes, right? It happens. But we rose above that. And we worked together, and with a unified front, we created something that people said couldn't be done. It's truly been a cast of thousands, and the power of that is amazing. And so we now have today, running through this region, a state-of-the-art open access fiber optic network. Wow. I mean, wow. You know, this changes everything. But don't for a second think that this celebration today means we're done. No, this really just marks the beginning of an even more exciting phase where we get to figure out all the really cool things we can do with this open access fiber network. With this regional asset, we've just kicked aside a barrier and helped move our region to the 21st century in the best way possible. With this open access infrastructure, we've got a tool in our hands that we can all use to shape our future. Now, lots of people say, what does this mean to me? What's this going to do for me? All right? And there's no single answer to that. Today, you're going to hear from people who are starting to use this tool. You're going to hear what they're doing, what things they're creating with it, and how they're imagining how we can create tomorrow with it. But the really cool thing about this is the answer to that question, what does it mean for me, is within inside all of us. It's within inside our communities. So how do we do this? How do we take this piece of technology and create this what can be? So I want to tell you, look around you, right? Look at your neighbors. Look at the people back there and over there, right? Talk to them and learn from them and share with them and listen to them. Leverage what they've done, let them leverage what you've done, and really work together because we're all on the same team. And within that is where the magic happens and where we create this, because we have what it takes to make this happen. We have the knowledges, we have the resource, and we have the creativity right here. You see, I know this to be true. And I know this to be true because we are here today. Together, we've done it. And I know as we embark on this next stage, we're all going to do it together again. So with that, I'd like to introduce Admiral Rick Gernon, President of Massachusetts Maritime Academy, which I have to say is a pretty awesome four-year college, and our host for today's event. And it is also one of the more than 70 community anchor institutions connected with this network. Welcome, Admiral. Thank you.
Welcome to Massachusetts Maritime Academy, and if I was any happier, I'd have to be twins. Let me explain. In a state where we have no gas, oil, or minerals, at a time when Massachusetts doesn't make shoes or textiles or clothing anymore, we can be justly proud of our most important domestic product, brain power. So Massachusetts has the highest percentage of people with a college degree of any of the 50 states. And brain power is the driver of two of our most important industries, higher education and medicine. In fact, fourth graders and eighth graders in Massachusetts have the highest test scores of any of the 50 states. And if the Bay State was a country, our eighth graders would rank third in the world in aptitude for science and math. At a time when our state is encouraging young people to pursue more STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, here at MMA, people think it's Massachusetts Maritime, it's actually Murray Maritime Academy. People ask me, how are you doing all this building and construction? I said, I'm in Terry Murray's district. Here, when everybody is pushing STEM subjects, 100% of our students take calculus, 100% take chemistry, 100% take physics. All of our undergraduate and graduate degrees are in STEM fields. At a time when our state is rightly concerned about growing our economy with good jobs at good wages, even though countrywide 50% of last year's college graduating class, 50% unemployed or underemployed. That's like, do you want skim or whole milk with your grande cappuccino latte? Here, our last year's class, 98% employed, and the average starting salary, $74,000. We're hiring We're hiring PhDs from MIT at 60, and their kids in their class going out the door make more than that in their first job. At a time in our nation when total student loan debt exceeds our total credit card debt, there is a national debate on the question, is college worth it? Well, the emphasis has shifted rightly from the rankings in U.S. News and World Report to the rankings in PayScale magazine, which ranks return on investment. In fact, William Bennett, former Secretary of Education under President Reagan, put a list out of 150 of the colleges worth going to in America. And on that list are the usual suspects, the MIT, the Harvard, the Dartmouth, the Princeton, and the Yale. There is only one public university in all of New England on that list, this one, return on investment. At a time when we must encourage more of our young people to seek high-quality higher education to sustain our economy, and we know that 75% of the young people who go to public colleges in the Commonwealth stay in the Commonwealth to work, at a time when access to bandwidth is almost as important as access to affordable higher education, I am truly pleased to welcome OpenCape and Cape Net here to the biggest and best maritime college in all of America.
Thank you. Thank you, Admiral Gernon. Now I'd like to introduce Alan Davis, CEO of Cape Net, who will be introducing the governor.
Thank you. I am pleased to introduce our first speaker, Governor Deval Patrick. I'm sure you know that Governor Patrick's experience as a civil rights lawyer, as a business executive, has benefited the Commonwealth in numerous ways. He funded public education at the highest levels in the history of the Commonwealth. He has positioned the state as a global leader in biotech, biopharmaceuticals, and information technology, and as a national leader in clean energy. He oversaw the expansion of affordable health care insurance to over 98% of Massachusetts residents. His administration has accomplished major reforms that actually eluded decades of other elected leaders. He helped reform the state's pension systems, ethics laws, and transportation bureaucracy. And pretty soon, you'll be able to legally gamble in Massachusetts, thanks to his efforts. What you may not know is the governor recognized well before the other governors in this country how important broadband is to the economic health of a state and the quality of life of all of its citizens. He led the way very early on to expand high-speed broadband beyond densely populated areas like Boston into rural areas of the Commonwealth that were in danger of being left behind in the global economy. Under Governor Patrick's leadership, Massachusetts was one of the first states to pass state legislation making stimulus funds available to broadband availability to underserved areas, well before the government, the federal government that is, stepped up and passed the broadband stimulus legislation and billions of dollars of broadband funds to be made available nationwide. He passed a stimulus broadband program for the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, actually is the right terminology, in the amount of $40 million. And he had the insight to make sure that the Cape received $5 million of those dollars in order to support the OpenCape Network. Thank you, Governor. So please join me in welcoming one of the earliest, most steadfast, and persistent supporters of the OpenCape Network, Governor Deval Patrick.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Alan, come back. You just took my remarks, too. Thank you, Teresa.
Oh, thank you.
Leave me my remarks. You take yours. Thank you very much.
I wanted to see if you could talk off the
I
top.
could probably do it. Alan, first of all, thank you for the very warm introduction, to you and Teresa for the extraordinary leadership that you have brought to Open Cape and Cape Eyes and the whole development of this initiative down here. Admiral, thank you for your very warm welcome and your extraordinary leadership. We do, all of us feel, we have to continue to work on helping you get your enthusiasm up, because it's just yeah, the whole shyness thing, I think, with some practice. I want to acknowledge the Senate President and Dan Wolf and the members of the legislature. We were giggling here, Alan, just among us friends and family, about all the credit that you're giving me for what we have done, what I passed, to enable these kinds of investments. But it takes a team. And I remember the very first time, actually, I remember when I was first running and getting around and meeting people in the Commonwealth, in Western Massachusetts and down the Cape, and hearing over and over again about the ways in which people felt cut off from the economic mainstream and the mainstream of opportunities here in the Commonwealth. In a whole host of ways. Transportation sometimes, education issues, and over again, access to high-speed broadband. I remember meeting a family out in Western Massachusetts who described how they would take the kids to do their homework and sit in the back seat of the family car in the parking lot of the library in the center of town, because that was the only hotspot. Remember we talked about this, Judy? The only hotspot for miles in that community. And so I came to office very much with in mind how we could, as a government, do what we could to help incentivize private investment and personal creativity to help bring these resources to underrepresented communities. And as you've heard and as you all know, high-speed broadband is as necessary an infrastructure in this 21st century global economy as roads and bridges. It's an educational necessity, an economic necessity, a medical necessity, a public, commercial, indeed a competitive necessity. And we can no more afford to have a community without this kind of access than we can afford to have a community without access to a good school or a decent road. For all of these reasons, we, all of us, committed to bring broadband to those underserved parts of our Commonwealth. In 2008, we created the Mass Broadband Initiative and started investing in conduits, fiber optic cables, and wireless towers. And in 2010, actually, I guess going back even further, but with the help of federal and state resources in 2010, I would say the initiatives that we're here to celebrate today really took off to the next level. Those funds, paired with your creativity and stewardship, is how we reach today's milestone. Starting today, Open Cape will provide more than 70 community facilities, 30 libraries, 5 colleges, and 6 research institutions, and thousands of small and large businesses with reliable, fast internet service. That means teachers and children for whom educational materials are out of reach, families for whom news was once out of reach, doctors and graphic designers for whom images were once out of reach, businesses for whom customers were once out of reach will now have brand new opportunities. We've waited a long, long time for this, and thanks to public investment alongside private investment and partners, many of whom are here, we don't have to wait anymore. And I want to come back to this point about partnership, because when we first brought up in a leadership meeting, and I think it was one of your early, it was right after you became Senate President. Am I remembering this right? We first brought up the question of a bond bill to invest in expanded broadband. And I will tell you candidly, I was remembering the conversation with that family in Western Massachusetts when I put the question on the table. And it was the Senate President who said, don't forget the Cape. Because the issues are the same, and they are real, and they are pressing, and they are immediate. And it was her partnership and the willingness of the legislature to step up, recognizing that we in government cannot and will not and should not presume to solve every problem in everybody's life, but that there are things we must do and can do to help people help themselves. that helped bring this, this initiative to this point. And so I want to acknowledge and thank the Senate President. I want to thank Dan and all of your colleagues in the Senate. I want to thank the many members of the House who were here for stepping up and partnering with us. I want to thank all the community advocates and local folks and private companies who have all worked together and done a marvelous job to take advantage of ways to leverage these resources, and we thank you so much for what you've done to bring us to this point. Now, just to echo what Teresa says, make the most of it. There's still the last mile. There's still how we use these resources. The point here is growth is a choice. It's a choice. And if we make wise choices like these kinds of public investments in private partnership, we can expand opportunities here on the Cape, in the South Coast, and all around the Commonwealth, and serve as an example of the role government can play in helping people help themselves. I'm honored to be with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor Patrick. It's truly wonderful to have you here today. And with that build-up, I want to lead right in to introduce someone who has been making a difference in our region for more than 20 years, State Senate President Therese Murray. She was elected senator of the Plymouth and Barnstable District in 1992, became chairwoman of Senate Ways and Means Committee in 2003, became the first woman president of the Massachusetts Senate in 2007, and her accomplishments touch so many areas of our region and of the Commonwealth as a whole: energy costs, financial reform, health care reform, children's issues, and of course, economic issues. She's long understood our region's need for the same kind of digital infrastructure found in more urban areas, and championed and supported these projects' efforts, as you just heard, from the very beginning. I am deeply grateful for her help, and I am delighted she can join us today. Please join me in welcoming Senate President Therese Murray.
Good afternoon. We actually had a few laughs about some things. I'm going to take credit for some other things. But I'm really excited, and I think that the conversation was people who, we have such a great tourism industry here, and we sell the Cape for tourism. We have lots of foreign and domestic travelers, but they come here and they find out they can't get connected. So they sit outside the few stores in the Cape or the libraries in the Cape, and they do the same thing that family in the Berkshires probably was doing, is try to hook up and get connected. And anybody here remember the silicone sandbar? Yeah. We were going to be connected then, and the economy kind of tanked a little bit. So it's very exciting to see the completion of the broadband infrastructure. I still have the silicone sandbar on the wall in my constituent office. So now we can put this one up instead. But this is really a major milestone for southeastern Massachusetts and today. And so thank you to OpenCape and Cape Net for working diligently to implement the fiber optic broadband here. And as the governor said, we live in a world that can't possibly be imagined without dependence on internet and online connections. And more importantly, we expect and demand the fastest and most efficient connections in our day-to-day lives. So you know, if you have a smartphone or if you have an iPad or if your computer, if it's slow, you just sit there saying, come on, come on. Or sometimes I smack mine. That's why I'm on my third. But that's why this broadband infrastructure is going to be such a tremendous asset for us in our communities, especially here on the Cape. We'll finally have open access to reliable communications network like the rest of the state. And we need to now consider how we can draw new companies to our regions. And this new major form of communication will ensure that these businesses no longer feel limited in their development. People can actually work out of their homes now. There are many areas where people have not been able to do that and have had to actually go to a physical place. So I hope that there'll be more businesses that can be run out of people's homes also. And I was going to go into I think it was the Recovery and Reinvestment Act of '09 that we put the first $32 million in, but it was the governor's idea to put the 40 up front, and I just put a little amendment attached to that and put $5 million in for the Cape. That's what we were laughing about. And the span of OpenCape's influence is enormous. And as has been stated, it's going to connect over 70 anchor institutions to the network, which will also help to connect our schools, libraries, hospitals, and public safety buildings. And after the hurricanes we've had and after the storm we had this winter, it's extremely important that our emergency networks be able to connect to this so that we'll have some more reliable and efficient connections. The governor visited Sandwich with me during the day after the storm, and we saw the communication center there. They had to open up the COA building, and they had wires pulling down from the ceiling, and everyone was trying to connect, and the police station was offline, and fire couldn't talk. So this is going to be so important for that, too, and maybe will result in us not having to have the kind of shelter experience we had also. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm glad to see this happening and look forward to seeing all the positive effects that this is going to have also.
Thank you again. Our next speaker knows the Cape and Islands inside out, up from above, maybe is a good way to put it. As a business leader, Dan Wolf and a handful of others founded what would become Cape Air and Nantucket Airlines. They began with one airline and one route, Provincetown to Boston. Today, Cape Air is one of the largest independent regional airlines in the country, serving more than 36 markets, 700,000 passengers a year, about 1,000 employees, and the company is based in Hyannis. We love that. As a state senator representing the Cape and the Islands, he has taken a key role working toward economic vibrancy. And he, as people say, he gets it when it comes to the role 21st century infrastructure plays in sustaining healthy businesses and strong communities. Welcome, Senator Wolf.
Thank you. And I want to start off by thanking the governor, thanking the Senate president, and all of my legislative colleagues here for the amazing commitment to making Massachusetts a really healthy place to do business, a vibrant place to do business and to grow. And I'm going to speak as a business guy and a state senator. I'm going to take hats on and off. As a business person, let me just say that everybody thinks an airline, they think airplanes. And actually, as I describe our company to people, I say our airline is actually a technology company that happens to fly airplanes. If you really look at what we do relative to product placement, communicating with our different regions around the world, and I guess I'll announce today we're going to be opening a little hub out in Montana, Billings, Montana. We have a hub in Guam. We have one in the Caribbean. You can't do that without high-speed internet access and without what this brings. So I think our company is an example of leveraging that asset, of a great public-private partnership, and what that can mean to all of the citizens and residents of Massachusetts. And speaking of all of the citizens and residents, not everybody completely gets it yet. I was out a couple of days ago having one of those conversations across the fence with a neighbor, and I was trying to explain how excited I was to be here today to announce this, and the governor and the Senate president and all the dignitaries are going to be here. And I went on explaining what this meant, what OpenCape was and how it was going to work and everything. And after about 5 minutes of doing that, they looked at me and they said, "So this means I can get on my interline and get Yoo-hoo?" And I was so proud of it, and I'm thinking, this is not a high-tech family. And I just said, make sure when you do that you wear your Googles. So we still have some educating to do about what this can bring to us. I want to single out a couple people, because we think it started in 2008, we think it started in 2010, but who here has a Cape and Islands license plate? Raise your hand. Because the real genesis of OpenCape, and Felicia Penn is here somewhere, David Willard is here, the first money that went to OpenCape was Cape and Islands license plate money, a grant committee that we were on of the Economic Development Council back in 2006, where this fledgling thing came across our desk and we said, well, it's probably the silicon sandbar isn't completely there yet, but it's probably a good thing for us to give some money to. So the original OpenCape money came out of the Economic Development Council, which was funded by Cape and Islands license plate revenue, and $50,000 was really what allowed OpenCape to hire the first people. So when you talk about the depth of that public-private partnership and whether government really is paying attention and getting it, and whether we're talking between private and public sector, and I saw Wendy Northcross. Wendy, you're here somewhere. Wendy Northcross, who is just an amazing CEO of our Chamber of Commerce and our business community. It was that collaborative partnership, understanding on the public side what the private side needed, and then that mutual support, using and leveraging the license plate money. So I'm proud to have been a part of that all along. There are so many people here to thank. Mary Pat Flynn is here somewhere, Sheila Lyons is here, Bill Doherty is here, all representing the county. That license plate money actually is county money, and you all have to vote on it, right? That's an important part of what you do. So it is thrilling for me to be here, both as a private sector and a public sector person, celebrating what everybody in this region will benefit from. My last pledge as a public official is the coverage that we now have with internet. Can we do that with cell phone coverage too? Yeah, we'll get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, now comes the moment. If we had a drum, we'd be doing like little drum roll things. Don't have a drum. But if, everyone, Governor, if you could come up, and Senator Murray and Senator Wolf, and everyone who's been involved in this, come on, guys. We are going to do a countdown. And we're going to see this sort of symbolically become live. We're going to see where it all goes. It's going to glow. Come on over, everybody. We're going to see it. You can watch it there. You can watch it here. Everyone's going to count down to this. Because, when you transition from something to another, when you go from we're imagining it, we're building it, we're building it, we're building it, we're building it, you need some kind of symbol to say, and now it's real. We have transitioned. This is no longer a dream. This is a reality. And so for us, this little moment, thank you so much for being part of, I do goofy things. People know that. Yes, see? Okay. So imagine, like I said, imagine what you can do with world-class broadband. Now you can. This changes everything. Okay, so let's get everyone to count down from 10, and then we're going to have a little symbolic lighting. So ready? 10, come on, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yay! We just wanted to take a second just to take a couple little we kind of memorize the moment here with a couple little images. Some people have asked for some images, so we're just going to pause for a minute. It's a nice little group.
Okay.
We all tight enough for everyone over there to have our pictures, art.
Is this where you want us?
Yeah, I just work for all the photographers. Oh, you want us to move? Sorry about this, guys. We just got to do this little drill. All right. Now we're going to move on to the second portion of our program. And make sure I'm in order here. Alan, come on up again. Alan Davis is going to introduce Judy Dumont. Because one of the things that, you've heard this alluded to here, that what's happened with broadband isn't just the Cape, it's not just the islands, it's not just South Coast, it's not just southeastern Massachusetts, it's a Commonwealth-wide effort. And I think it's important for us to understand how all of these pieces fit together because, you know what, all of us in the Commonwealth are also on the same team. So I'm going to introduce Alan Davis again, and he is going to lead us through.
Thank you. It's my job to introduce people. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are actually over 120 similar projects that have been funded by the federal government, similar to the OpenCape Network. It involves actually the expenditure of over $4 billion of federal money, and that doesn't, of course, count the state money and the local contributions that have been made. This has been a major federal effort to really broaden the scope of broadband, broaden the availability of broadband throughout the country. Massachusetts is lucky enough to have two such initiatives. One you've heard about today, the OpenCape Network, but there's another one, and the other one is in Western Massachusetts. It's called MBI 123 is the name of the project. It is actually being led by the Mass Broadband Institute, and the director of the Mass Broadband Institute is Judy Beaumont, who's sitting in front of me. She was appointed by the governor in 2009 to head that effort. That effort is in Western Massachusetts. It covers over 1,200 miles. It will extend broadband to 120 communities in Massachusetts. MBI is actually a division of Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, and its goal is to provide affordable, quality broadband access throughout Western Massachusetts and in parts of northern Massachusetts as well. We think this is another major project that will spur economic growth in parts of Massachusetts that perhaps isn't up to par with the major urban areas. I want to say that I've known Judy for several years, and they're working together to join MBI and CapeNet as a single state network and to do things together. It's a pleasure to have work with Judy to hopefully make this become a reality. And so that being said, I'd like to introduce Judy and hear her words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can everyone hear? There we go. Thank you. I'd just like to congratulate everybody. Teresa, what a fabulous job. And all the folks here, Dan Vorthams and Dan Gallagher, who I haven't seen so well rested in, oh, there he is, over there in many years, as well as the board, staff, and supporters of OpenCape. Of course, Alan Davis and the folks at CapeNet, congratulations on this huge milestone. Job well done. I feel like those of us who have participated in building these publicly funded open access broadband networks are forever united by this experience. These networks, building out these networks, are challenging enough and complex, even under the best of circumstances. And for us, we were doing it under a 3-year countdown clock, which most folks in the commercial sector said, you're doing what in what amount of time? And we've done it, which is extremely exciting. I often joked with Gary Dalius from OpenCape and Dan Gallagher early on that at the most difficult times of the build-out of the Mass Broadband 123 project, I could always say to myself, at least I don't need to do a directional bore under the Cape Cod Canal. As it turned out, I don't think you did either, but, but it got me through. This network that was really made possible, and you folks know this, and you heard it today, from the commitment and perseverance of individual citizens dedicating thousands of hours of volunteer time to develop the plan, to get the political support, and to close a very key part of the digital divide here in the Commonwealth. The MBI is actually created by Governor Patrick and the legislature. Our main focus is on solving the problem out in Western Mass, but we are concerned about the digital divide across Massachusetts. So the fact that the folks from OpenCape were taking care of the Cape and the islands and the South Coast was just a huge benefit to us. And one a partnership that we've started a long time ago, and we will continue with it with the folks from CapeNet. As you've heard, this network and Mass Broadband 123 wouldn't have been possible without the support and leadership of Governor Patrick, Senate President Murray, and all the folks in the legislature who really stepped up well before most states did across the country to say, you know what, we need to take care of this problem at a state level. It put us in a fantastic position to go after the federal stimulus dollars. OpenCape was the first awardee, and we followed along about 6 months later in getting $45 million for Mass Broadband 123. To date, we've used that $40 million to catalyze investment from the federal government and private sector. $40 million has brought in an additional $83 million of federal funds and over $30 million in private investment. So I think that's a pretty good return on the state's investment. Combined, our two networks will be over 1,500 miles of high-capacity fiber optics that connect over 1,300 schools, libraries, town offices, healthcare centers. Out west, there's more work to be done as we look to connect the residences and businesses in these really, really small towns. Many of the towns out in western Mass have population density per square mile of 1 household per square mile, I'm sorry, under 10 households per square mile. Very, very rural. So we're going to continue our work on Mass Broadband 123 and look to take it to the next level. But these investments, really, it's not just about, what did you call it, Yahoo? And yeah, that's fantastic. We run into that. But it's not just about getting residents online. That's very important. But the reason this is so important is to spur economic development and job creation in two of the most beautiful sections of the Commonwealth, but two of the most economically challenged areas as well. We have seen in other parts of the country how these gigabit networks can be transformative. You all have probably heard about Google Fiber in Kansas City, and what's happening there are tech entrepreneurs are flocking to hacker houses and startup villages just to get access to the affordable high-speed internet that's available there. In Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, they've called themselves Gigabit City, and they hold geek hunts, again, to attract technical entrepreneurs to their city, and that's been very successul. With this investment and with these networks, this becomes possible here and in Western Mass. And what really needs to happen, and the folks from OpenCape and CapeNet, as well as the folks from MBI, are committed to doing this. Alan talked about the billions of dollars of federal grants back in 2009 and 2010 to build out 123 of these networks that, when complete, we will have across the country 100,000 miles of this open access fiber optic network, and we will be connecting over 20,000 schools and libraries and public institutions. So this is truly transformative. And they will better help the country and also help us compete in the global economy. I look forward to continuing our work in partnership with OpenCape and CapeNet so that we can realize the benefits of these transformative networks. So congratulations once again, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being here.
And Alan's going to continue his introduction. Are you not? Come on up. I'm just going to make him stand up here now and not let him go back and sit down.
So it's my pleasure to introduce the CEO of OpenCape Corporation, Dan Vortherms. I know you all know, or many of you know, Dan Gallagher, who was the inspirational leader of the OpenCape Corporation. We've got a great deal to have brought this to its present state. Many of you may not know Dan Vortherms, who took Dan Gallagher's place. We often refer to him as Dan 2 as opposed to Dan 1. But I'd like to give you an analogy to kind of introduce to you Dan's importance to this project as opposed to Dan Vortherms' importance to this project as opposed to Dan Gallagher. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the way football works today. You have a quarterback, and that quarterback, he's generally right now, he's a guy who knows how to pass the ball down the field. And if he's effective, he uses those passes, those long passes, to inspire his team to get down the field into the red zone. Well, what happened here is that Dan Gallagher retired when he got to the 20-yard line in the red zone. And so Dan Vortherms picked up from there, but without that last 20 miles, there's no score. There's no touchdown. And so what Dan Vortherms has done is in a very creative, wonderful way, is he's put the rest of the team on his back, and he's gotten this over the goal line. And so I'd like to introduce Dan Vortherms, the CEO of OpenCape Corporation, to say a few words. Thank you, Dan.
I'm not sure about the football analogy of carrying everyone on my back. And I have been known as Dan, too, and I've had a desire occasionally to get the T-shirt made that says, "Not that Dan." It's only through a fortuitous set of circumstances that I do stand here today as the CEO of OpenCape as the network is launched. There is an old African saying that says it takes a village to raise a child, and that certainly has some applicability here to OpenCape. I think you've heard the story already in terms of how this network came about. A number of organizations such as Cape Cod Community College, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, Cape Cod Technology Council, all recognizing issues that they had with their own organizations, got together and spread out, looking for a solution for the entire area. Clearly, you've heard all the stories about the criticality of the state, the county government in putting some initial seed money in our hands to get this network started. We also had good support at the federal level as well. Then Senator Kerry's office and Congressman Keating's office have been critical in getting the project started and with ongoing support. So my thanks really goes out to that entire village who put this together, all the people who had a hand in formulating the initial idea, coalescing that idea into an actionable plan, and then executing that plan to get us to the network launch point we're at today. When talking about a network, especially being an engineer, it's hard not to give some description of the network technology, but just suffice it to say that our network technology matches the latest technologies being deployed in fiber network around the world by even the largest operators. Networks capable of symmetrical connection speeds up to 100 gigabits per second, and that's even without breaking the proverbial sweat in the network. Internet and Internet 2 connectivity is available, as well as direct connectivity between network locations with unprecedented speed and especially network flexibility. The reserve fiber that we have and the increases in speed that will come over time with improvements in electronics will make sure that this network is a powerful factor in the area for the next 30 to 50 years. But the network isn't all about high speeds and growth potential, because the network is not the end. It's just the means to an end. And the people in the community served by the network can play an important role in developing what that end game looks like. One of the most important aspects of this network and the flexibility of this project is that it's a locally controlled asset. There's no large corporate entity that dictates how the network is used. OpenCape is set up as a nonprofit with a board of directors who live and work in the communities served by the network. CapeNet itself is established specifically to support this network, both in its construction and its ongoing operations. On top of that, as you've also heard, this network has an open access network requirement because of the federal money involved in the project. This means that any entity can gain access to the network to provide advanced services to the communities, schools, and businesses that connect to the network. Advanced services could come from traditional service providers, such as existing online backup services. There could be new expansions in the network with a variety of wireless or wired technologies to extend the reach of the physical network. Advanced services could be expanded sharing of the rich fine arts environment that we have here on the Cape. The serving entities could be existing companies that utilize the backbone network in the data center to expand their coverage areas and reach out to new customers. Or it could be groups of residents who want something unique for their neighborhood. New service providers can be formed to offer services across a wide area, or, like I said, an individual neighborhood, a town, an industrial park, a commercial development. Individual towns can share applications and services with other towns to gain efficiencies and economies of scale. Educational material and virtual classrooms can be shared across multiple physical buildings. Any and all of these are possible with the OpenCape Network. We've already seen leaders in the area of new and non-traditional service providers. Barnstable County, through the Cape Cod Commission, is taking a lead in advanced service offerings to towns on and off the Cape with their e-permitting application. Cape Cod Community College is taking the lead in development of expanded educational opportunities into the regional schools. Other companies engaged in unique service offerings are already contacting us relative to services they would like to offer on the network and through the data center. The network brings these enhanced element of performance and reliability, and it's a huge attractor for a number of companies, even across just our small area here. Individuals in the service area are also looking at other avenues for unique uses of the network. Cape Cod Technology Council's Infrastructure Committee is a fertile ground for discussion of many of these opportunities and for uses of the network for expanding our view outside the local area. An example of this is certain nonprofit companies that are focused on creating next-generation internet applications that provide transformative public benefit. These are all applications that can use and benefit from this network and bring those new services. And again, it's very heartening coming to this project and finding the local community support, finding individuals out there in these organizations that are saying, what can we do to make this different and better utilize the entire network? As Judy mentioned, we do have opportunities to learn and borrow from those who have done other networks similar to these. In some cases, there's community networks, municipally owned networks like Lafayette, Louisiana, Longmont, Colorado, Sandy, Oregon, or even up the street here in Taunton. There's major movers and shakers like Google Fiber that offer us different opportunities to look at how we might want to offer different services and transform the area. We have our sibling networks in New England, such as the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, Network New Hampshire, and Ocean. There's even organizations that have contacted us from well outside the area, like Merit Networks in Michigan. That's a network that's been operating since 1986. So there's a lot of commonalities and a lot of things we learn and a lot of partnerships we can develop in the future with this open access network we have. With all the potential out there and the wide array of interested individuals and companies, as the CEO of OpenCape, I can't tell you what the network's going to look like in 10 years or even 5 years. The network passes through 37 towns and cities with a combined population of almost 1 million people. The future uses of the network will largely be determined by individuals in the region, thinking outside the box in their particular industry, be it healthcare, education, government, retail, IT, public safety, manufacturing, entertainment, or whatever, without artificial constraints on bandwidth or crippling policies. OpenCape will be actively seeking individuals and organizations that are defining cutting-edge uses of the network. As with the inception of this network, it will take a village to continue to define the growth and uses of this network. And as a local asset, every villager here is welcome to engage in that discussion of how to use the network. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. There have been a lot of thank yous today, and there are many more people that we could all thank. I'd like to focus on some very specific people that I'd like to thank as the CEO of OpenCape, CapeNet. See, even I get it mixed up. First, I would like to thank our business partners, our construction partners, our technology partners, our resellers, people who have had a role both in helping us construct the network and have a role in helping us operate the network. But the most important people that I'd like, on behalf of my company, CapeNet, to thank is my staff. My staff who actually played the day-to-day role in helping us make this a reality. Well, without the individuals on my staff who saw, met the daily challenges that we face to build this network, there would be no OpenCape Network. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Bill, for the amazing job that you did on a day-to-day basis to make this a reality. Thank you very much. I also want to say a special thanks to Admiral Rick Gernon, who graciously has agreed to host this event. We've had an opportunity to work closely over the past few weeks together, preparing for the event and preparing for the Mass Maritime's use of the fiber optic network, which is going to happen. Thank you, Admiral. And we could not ask for more generous support than you've provided us to date. It's been a pleasure dealing with you, and it's been a pleasure watching you speak, I must say. The other thing I'd like to say, for those of you who are fortunate enough to get here early and be guided by the Admiral to see what he refers to as the Xbox 360, $2 million Xbox 360, which was a simulation of guiding ships through worldwide towers in what appeared to be reality. To use another expression I've heard in the movies, but doesn't apply exactly in this situation, but I'm going to make it apply anyway, you made my day. I'd also like to thank Teresa Martin, who you've seen up here, for her tremendous support in making this event happen today. Without her effort, this event never would have come about. Thank you, Teresa. Most of you know that Teresa was one of the earliest supporters of the OpenCape project, and she served on the board of directors of OpenCape in a very critical formative stage. Finally, I'd like to thank a fellow who I alluded to earlier, but who cannot go unmentioned in terms of thankfulness, and that's Dan Gallagher. Any of you who've been familiar with this project over the years know that this has been come about because of Dan's vision, Dan's persistence, Dan's, well, I don't want to say bugging, but the way he basically made sure that everybody knew every day what this project was about, what benefits it was going to produce for the region. There were challenges, numerous challenges along the way, which Dan never really got full credit for, that he as he would say, just do your job, and he was doing his job, and thank you again for the tremendous contribution that you made. I also see many faces here from various chambers of commerce and the media and area businesses, and obviously representatives of towns. And these people, I must say, supported the project from day one, and thank you again for your efforts, because without your efforts, we wouldn't be here today. I also want to thank, and again, this is a special mention, Otis Air National Guard. And you'll hear from Brigadier General Keefe after me. But it's important to mention them because they're our first customer. And we're really honored that a base so important to the security, to the importance of this Commonwealth of Massachusetts, had enough faith in what we're doing here today that they said, we don't care if this is proven or not. You guys, we've had enough contact with you guys. We know you know what you're doing, and you're going to produce a quality network, and we're proud to be your first customer. So they obviously saw the advantages of this network, the uniqueness of this network, and they chose to jump on board early on. So thank you, Admiral, thank you, General, and thank you, Otis Air Force Base, for being our first customer. I should say also that there are many more customers that have signed on and will be on board this summer. certainly are not the only customers that we brought up, even though they were the first. And we recognize there'll be many other customers, institutions and others that will wait a while before they jump on board, because we all don't want to be early adopters, do we? We want to make sure that this is proven, that it actually works the way we say it's going to work. But I don't think once we pass that testing point that you'll have any problem jumping on board just the way Otis Air Force did early on and say, hey, we want to be part of this project. We want to be part of what makes this region great, and we want to be a partner in this network. So Dan has already mentioned the many possibilities for the future. I don't want to reiterate those other than to say we're still at a very early stage of the network in terms of what's going to happen here. There'll be a lot of innovations done. There'll be a lot of new ideas. We have obviously serious competition through some companies that I'm sure you know about that will be, and it'll be challenging for us to do what we need to do to be successful. We expect to have our share of victories and our share of setbacks. The future will not always unfold as quickly or as smoothly as many of us would like. As many of you are aware, the path to success is not always smooth. But what I can say is that on behalf of CapeNet, we're in this for the long haul, and we expect to be successful. And we're going to do what it takes. And all we need is your continuing support of our efforts, which I think I can rely on at this point. And I think we're going to have something that not only our company, but the entire region, the entire state, indeed the entire country, will be proud to say, hey, we were part of this effort, and we're looking back 20 years, 30 years, they're going to say, this was a great thing that we did. Thank you very much. I'm here again. You can't get rid of me. So my next task, and I don't really consider it a task, I consider it a pleasure, is to introduce Brigadier General Gary Keefe of the Otis Air Force, formerly Otis Air Force Base. It's now called the National Guard Base. Brigadier General Keefe is the commander of the Massachusetts National Guard and the Otis National Guard Base. He is principal advisor to the Adjutant General, Air Component Commander, and the Land Component Commander in the administration, coordination, planning, and development and execution of all National Guard and National Guard Joint Staff programs. He assures the preparation of the 8,200 soldiers and airmen of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for contingency operations in both federal and state emergencies. What he really does at Otis is actually top secret, and if I told you, I'd have to kill you. And so what I'd like to do now is introduce the General to speak on behalf of the base. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'll be real quick. I want to get you out of here so you can enjoy the 10 minutes of sunlight we're allotted today before the rain comes again. And Alan, I would never kill you. I'm using today as my jump-off point to suck up to you for a job when I retire. So. Hey, real quick, on behalf of the 4,000 men and women in and out of uniform on the Mass Military Reservation, thank you for this opportunity. You know, I'm actually a Western Mass guy. I live in Western Mass. I drive to the Cape every day and drive home most days. And my wife is a school teacher. And if you are one of these communities that does not have access, you are so far behind everybody else. Everything in the education is put on the net or on the cloud or whatever the heck they're calling it nowadays. assignments, grades, questions for teachers, everything. So, like I said, out in Western Mass, we're still using IBM punch cards and things like that. General Quinneville was smart enough, he's a Western Mass guy who moved down here a long time ago. I probably should have followed his lead a long time ago. But for us in the military, especially being guardsmen in Massachusetts, Title 32, it allows us to interact and partner with the public sector, private companies a lot. So we're really looking forward to, we're excited for everyone in the Cape, southeastern Massachusetts for this kicking off, but the real excitement is going to be watching this thing grow and what happens to it. And for us in the National Guard, we've got cyber units and cyber missions that we're looking to bring online, and this gives us a great opportunity to partner with private companies and public sector organizations. Because in the days of the shrinking dollar, regardless if you're wearing a uniform or whatever, you need to capitalize on redundancy, and you need to partner up and take advantage of the technology and the skill that's out there. And Massachusetts, when it comes to computers, you think Massachusetts, you think Washington, Texas, and that Maryland, Virginia area. And we're all competing to be number one. And with Otis's 24/7 mission, with the Coast Guard Air Station's 24/7 mission, the intelligence mission we have going on, it's a beautiful fit to have this thing marry on top there because, quite honest, the lines are blurring, and we really want to be full partners with everybody that's involved in this. So I want to thank the folks from OpenCape and Cape Net for letting us be part of this today, and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers remaining, and both of them have something in common, and that they know how to use these network assets. And each of them are going to share some very concrete thoughts and ideas about that question we started out with. So what does this mean to me? What do I do with it? So I want to introduce first Art Gaylord. Art is one of OpenCape's founders. He's currently chair of the OpenCape board, and he's the director of Computer and Information Services at the world-renowned Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Thank you, Art.
Thank you, Teresa.
Welcome.
Hello. For me, this is a really happy day. I mean, I was one of the people who started on this back in 2006, and over 7 years of, trying to get some money, trying to figure out what to do, going through construction and all of that, to get to this point is really amazing. And I'm happy for that. And I really want to thank all of the people who have helped to make this happen. It could not have happened without the support of all the federal, state, county, local government officials who have already been mentioned who supported this project. I also want to thank all of the OpenCape board members who have put in literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours of volunteer time to make this happen. All of us have other day jobs and have taken out, huge amounts of time to see this happen because we thought it was important for the Cape. We thought it was important for the region. Been asked to say a little bit about, why did I get involved in this? I mean, my day job is, as Teresa said, the Director of Computer and Information Services at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Well, part of that job is providing the network connectivity for the institution and for 5 other scientific research organizations in the Woods Hole area. And one of my concerns has always been, how am I going to get enough bandwidth? How am I going to get enough reliability, redundancy, and so forth into this area, given the isolation of the Cape in terms of modern communications technologies? When OpenCape came along, I saw that here was the chance to work with some people to solve this problem once and for all. Part of our question was the need for speed. Everybody wants more speed and everything. But another part of it was the need for redundancy, for reliable communications, multiple high-performance connections off of the Cape to the rest of the world. That wasn't possible previously, but now with OpenCape, it is. The other part that drove me was that I wanted to future-proof the area. I wanted to make sure that we put an infrastructure in place that didn't just work for today, but worked for the things that we would need 5 years, 10 years, 30 years down the road. I don't know what all of that's going to be, but I know that with the resources that Cape Net has built for OpenCape, that it's going to be possible. And, furthermore, one of the things that I'm excited about is the fact that these aren't just esoteric goals that were met for WHOI or for advanced research people. This is an infrastructure and capabilities that are available throughout the Cape, throughout the southeastern Massachusetts region. So it isn't just about serving the needs of those who have the most, exotic requirements right now. It's a matter of serving the needs of everybody. One of the things I wanted to do was spend a few minutes talking about trying to stretch your imagination. Think about what is it that we really talk about that can be done with this network. And so a few things that are, a little bit, outside the box. Everybody knows about or hears about, better bandwidth, more connectivity, more places that you can get connected to, how it will help schools, education, businesses, and so forth, in an everyday situation. But let's think beyond the everyday. Let's think a little bit about what is marginally in the future right now, but should become everyday within a few years. So one of the things, the first examples I want to talk about is one which is applicable to my institution. Telepresence is becoming increasingly used to make the science that is going on board ships in remote locations around the world available to the scientists that are still here on shore. Not everybody can go on a ship, but now, thanks to modern technology and so forth, everybody can see what is happening on those ships. And with OpenCape, we now have the opportunity to take that science, this live, high-definition video and so forth, and bring it into the schools. Why not let all the classrooms throughout the region see what's going on in real time? This makes science so much more exciting. And it doesn't have to just be the oceans. That's what I happen to be looking at. But let's do it from space. Let's do it from, if there's a volcanic eruption, whatever. Bring it into the schools. This is possible to share this now. And to give you a little bit of feeling of what I'm talking about and what it might look like, I've got a little video here that I'd like to show you. This is something that was recorded a year or so ago. And can you turn up the sound a little bit?
Lying unobserved in the cold and dark of the deep ocean, they host hundreds of exotic animal species that were completely unexpected until their first discovery at the end of the last century. Now, remarkably, it has emerged that some of these vents, lying in the deepest parts of the oceans, may not only host bizarre life forms, but may also reveal secrets to the origins of life on Earth. This, in turn, means that our research may also help inform where else we might best start the search for life beyond Earth, elsewhere in our solar system and beyond. In our most recent work, sponsored in the United States by the National Science Foundation and NASA, we have begun a detailed investigation of the world's deepest hydrothermal field, named Picard for one of the great pioneers of deep ocean exploration. The site lies just south of the Cayman Islands in the Western Caribbean. Not only is this site the deepest, and hence highest pressure hydrothermal field ever found, at roughly 5,000 meters below the ocean surface, but also one of the hottest. The highest temperature chimneys at this site emit vent fluids that are slightly in excess of 400 degrees Celsius. In addition to the geologic setting that allows these hydrothermal systems to become established, and the chemical composition of the fluids that result, what we're also particularly interested in with this study is the way that such systems are able to sustain life. At the base of the food chain are some of the most primitive life forms known on Earth. Microbes that thrive at the high temperatures found around vents and in the complete absence of oxygen. Conditions that may have been much more widespread in Earth's early oceans, and who knows where else. These microbes, in turn, fuel an abundant community of other animals. At Picard, the system is relatively straightforward. The microbes are grazed upon by a new species of blind shrimp specially adapted to life around black smokers, and these in turn are grazed upon by abundant anemones that live around the periphery of both high temperature and lower temperature more diffuse vents. Our work at these vents has just begun, but we already know that this area would represent an ideal natural laboratory for longer-term study of some of the most fascinating and least understood ecosystems here on Earth. In addition, however, the research we have started here should also help to predict where else we might seek for life in the future, elsewhere in our solar system.
This makes it real. This is taking science out of the textbook. It gives people, the teachers, the opportunity to talk about not just the ocean, but about biology, about chemistry, about the solar system, as was alluded to here. I mean, people who are studying these issues are looking at fundamental issues that talk about what we are as a people, what we are as and what our place is in the universe. And you can bring this into the classroom. But let's not just think about science. I mean, that's one thing. But what about engaging our students, in terms of the performing arts, in terms of music, and so forth? Imagine if you take a musician, maybe somebody from the Boston Symphony, maybe I don't know, who comes into a classroom and not just talks and demonstrates his instrument or her instrument to the classroom, but actually engages the students in a participatory manner, so where the students may be playing along or singing along with this person. This would not be possible on most networks. It is possible on the OpenCape Network because the network was designed to have extremely short delays from one point to another point. If you're all involved in music, you know that synchronization is key to any performance. A network, conventional network, kills that synchronization, but not the OpenCape Network. It makes these things possible. Go a step beyond that, and let's think about the fact that maybe a band at one high school works with a band at another high school that are both on the network, and they share their performances and they collaborate. All kinds of possibilities happen when you have high bandwidth, instantaneous communications available to you on a regular basis. But why stop at the schools? Let's think about what happens when these multiple famous, maybe some not so famous authors come to the Cape. They speak in small audiences often, confined by a library, confined by the size of an auditorium or something like that. Many times, these people have got there's much broader interest in this, but they don't necessarily have the time to go all over the place. So let's make these presentations available to people. Now, there's going to be some copyright issues and everything, but I'm sure the creative people around here can figure out how you take care of that to extend it. Why not take some of these performances and bring them into our elder care centers? Let's enrich the lives of our senior citizens by using the network to bring the events that happen around our wonderful area into their facilities. Let's use the OpenCape Network to make sure that the citizens of our region have full access to all the aspects of modern medical information technology. From access to electronic records, to video conferences with their doctors, be they local or far away. Let's look at ways of using the network to enable in-home healthcare monitoring, which will help people stay in their homes longer. All of these things are possible if we choose to do it. Finally, in terms of, again, medical stuff, let's make sure that the world knows that this region now has a world-class communications infrastructure that makes it possible for healthcare industry to develop and build applications, build companies here that will serve this region, in terms of jobs. Many of the issues that we have to deal with at the government level involve regional decisions. On the Cape, clearly the whole water management, wastewater is a huge issue that has to be dealt with. And, it's difficult to get everybody to agree, everybody to understand the issues. But let's use the network to enable region-wide meetings. Rather than having a whole series of meeting in town after town after town, let's start to use the network such that we can have, use the auditoriums in high schools or whatever to enable the participants throughout the Cape to meet in one large common meeting, not being constrained by distance, by travel time, by the size of a room. We have this capability, and we should be using it. Good decisions on complex problems need good data. And in many cases, that means lots and lots of measurements from lots and lots of locations. We can use the network to help us build distributed networks for monitoring of water quality, air quality, the state of our beaches, even road quality, and so forth. And furthermore, we can engage our citizens in a citizen science or citizen participation model such that they can use apps on their smartphones and so forth to report measurements. We can report potholes, all sorts of things can be brought in. What do you need to do this? You need a good network, and you need ubiquitous communications throughout the Cape, and that's what we're starting to bring to you. Let's think about our visitors. Tourism is a big industry. How can we enhance their experiences? Well, they have smartphones. Everybody has smartphones these days. And we just need to make sure that we can get wireless signals to them no matter where they are on the Cape. And that we put up signage and other things that they can use. Imagine walking up to a bus stop and taking your phone, waving it over a little code on a sign that nicely indicates that this is the Cape area, and finding out when the next bus is going to arrive. Imagine walking up to a restaurant and waving your phone over a sign and finding out what the reviews are and what the menus are of that restaurant. Finding out when the next movie performance is. All sorts of things. When you're walking down the bike path, going down a bike path, walking on a nature trail, have signs up that let people know what they're seeing. Give them the background of that, the wildlife that might be present. All this is possible. It only takes some imagination. It only takes some will to make it happen. And finally, let's not forget the power of open access and local ownership. Open access means competition. And that means that if a need isn't being met, then anyone can strive to fill the void. This means that offering new services is possible. You're not constrained by what somebody far away thinks is the right technology and the right speeds and the right cost for the Cape, for the region. We want new companies to emerge, both directly offering services on the network, companies that can just be enabled by the network. Let's hope that the next big thing, whatever that may be, comes out of the Cape. Why not? We're just as capable as any other place in the world of producing that next great idea. And now, with the network, we can also ensure that when they do that, they can grow their business here. They don't have to leave to go someplace else in order to grow their company. Open access also means that the local community, a group of businesses and so forth, can organize themselves to extend the network in places where it may not be today. You know, OpenCape and CapeNet can't build to every single location on the Cape on day one. We will expand as rapidly as we can, as rapidly as you, the customers, expand, you know, and they want us to. But there will be times when people will want this to happen faster. Maybe people who are living in a condominium want network access now. People who are at a small shopping center or industrial park want access now. OpenCape, CapeNet are allowing people to organize, purchase connectivity on the network and expand that and grow that internally as they want to. This is something that couldn't happen before with traditional networks, but will happen here, and it's how things will grow. So I just tried to give you a little summary of things that might be possible, trying to stir some imagination and so forth. Whether or not these things that I talk about, you know, ever happen or not, I hope they will. I think a lot of them are easier than people might think. Isn't really important. What is important is that people think, and people realize that this is a network that they have a say in what happens and how it grows. How rich this environment becomes is dependent upon not just the OpenCape board, not just the efforts of CapeNet, but the efforts of all of you. And I certainly hope that you will join with us in making this one of the most successful networks in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Art. You want to introduce our last speaker? Yeah, actually, I'll introduce Judy, who is going to introduce our last speaker of the day. Some of you have heard Judy's name. She is Vice President of Marketing for CapeNet.
And I'm really going to just give Alan's voice a break. I think he's getting over a cold. This is our last speaker of the day, and he is well worth the wait. Craig Settles. Probably the most often question I'm asked is, where do we go from here? How do we make this a reality? How do we bring this into our town? And there are as many answers for that as there are projects going on around the country. Craig is an author, a blog radio show, and a consultant to many towns and entities that are going the extra step to extend networks around the country. And he has a wealth of information about how we do get there. I'm sure he's not going to give us hundreds of examples today, but I hope he'll give us a few. And I would bet, I'll take bets right now, that I think Craig's biggest challenge is going to be standing still, because he usually likes to walk back and forth. So join me in welcoming Craig Settles.
All of the work that everyone has done to bring this network to this point is admirable, it's laudable. You should be very proud of that, and you should be very energized by the possibilities that it offers. However, none of that work and effort is going to mean jack if people don't use the network, if they don't subscribe to the network, if they don't make it financially sustainable. And the only way that you're going to get people to use it, to care about it, is that they've got to understand what's in it for me. As someone said earlier, the network is not the end. The network is the means to many ends. So how do you do that? There are four main areas that I talk to people about when trying to explain what do you want to do with the network. Four categories of uses, if you will, and by helping folks understand how others have used the network in those four areas, these people will understand where the value is. And as I mentioned to some folks earlier today in the reception, you're going to have to brace yourself for a flood of ideas and a flood of innovation, because once the first two examples go live, the floodgates will open, and there will be more things to do with this network than you will find hours in the day, in the week, and so forth. So you've got to figure out, well, how do I prime this area? Four things. If I project, can you hear me in the back? Yes. Excellent. All right.
We're not picking you up on the video.
Can't hear you on the video. You're the microphone, sir. Sorry. The crosses I bear are immense. The limitations of technology slay me. All right, let's move this around a little bit. Give me a little latitude here. All right, first area is high-speed internet access is going to transform how we educate our youth and how we educate our adults. In Kansas City, they're looking at ways to use the internet to take those work groups, remember we used to suffer through those in high school and in college, and where the work groups are not just 3 or 4 people in your class, but your work group, your study group becomes literally the world. They're looking at collaborating with other cities, with other school districts, with other countries, so that their students, when they're learning foreign languages, are learning with people in China, in Europe, in Africa. When they are doing their work, it's not just the students and the teachers, it's the students and the teachers and the parents. Their work is not being done just in the classroom, the work is being done from home. It is being done in new ways that we can't even fully imagine. We cannot fully imagine. If you have a teenager, you've watched a teenager, these folks have a mobile device in one hand and a computing device in the other hand. They're talking on a phone, they're texting, and somewhere in there they're learning and they're getting an education. They're multitasking in ways, again, we cannot think of. But when we use the internet to harness that potential energy of how we can transform the business of education, you create a new and better workforce. You create kids who not only will learn more from abroad, but will actually be inclined to stay home because they can work and multitask both locally and globally, right? One of the biggest challenges in many communities is what do you do with folks who have left? How do you get them to stay? How do you get them to return? Your creative use of the internet and how it is used in education is going to have a major role in playing in both creating the next workforce, the next generation workforce, but also keeping that workforce local and home. Second area where broadband will have a notable impact is streamlining the business of government, local government. Now, it has become fashionable to bash local government and talk about, you know, the ills of government, but governments have built highways, they have made our waters drinkable, they have protected us from, unfair business practices. Government has an important role to play in many aspects of our lives, in public safety and so forth. The ability of cities to take the internet, and as former mayor of Philadelphia used to say, we want more people online, not in line at our social services or offices, at our government offices. We want people to engage online. It makes for a better service. It makes for a more convenient service. It makes for a more engaged population, right? This is really where government is going. Our ability to make our firefighters and our police more effective. Our ability to make our social services and the safety nets that they provide more effective and more inclusive. The ability to include folks from all aspects of our community, whether they are next door, whether they are local down the road, or if they are in the other part of the county. Streamlining government has monetary benefits. It has social benefits, it improves, it helps the public good. So that's number 2. Number 3 is transforming the way healthcare and medical services are delivered, improving the ability to provide emergency medical services faster, more efficiently. The ability to, as they have done in Danville, Virginia, tie together their hospital facilities and their clinics and their physicians into a communication network that allows them to deliver 21st century health care, to improve the ability for hospitals locally to communicate and bring in the best doctors and the best specialists from hospitals across the state or across the country, to transform how we receive health care, so we save more lives, so we spend less money, that we make this place, this area where you live and work, a better place. Because in Danville, not only did they improve the healthcare services, they used the improvements that they've gained in healthcare service delivery, and it is a primary tool by which they convince businesses to move to their area. Because there is excellent health care, there is excellent medical care, and if you're a new business looking to put employees in a new location, this matters, it matters a lot. But the other side of the health care and the telehealth developments that are coming into play is that it changes the way people receive health care at home. It changes the dynamic so you don't have to take off work and travel to receive basic level health care, to access information that can help you do preventative health care on your own. It's important for how we address our aging seniors population. One of my aunts and I, we were on the phone and we were having a discussion because my uncle's not doing very well. And they live in a big house. And this becomes an issue. Becomes an issue because their only child is in Nebraska and they're in Ohio. And in the conversation, you sort of lay out, well, you should move because, you'll be closer to the family. It'll be easier. You can get a smaller place, a split-level place. And finally, my aunt's a very stubborn woman, finally, after really dragging me along for about 15, 20 minutes, she goes, but I don't want to leave. I've been here for 40 or 50 years, and my friends are here, and my church is here, and my doctor is here, and I don't want to leave. And that's powerful. So if you can use the internet to allow kids to basically keep tabs on their parents and their older relatives, if you can use the internet to enable those older folks to keep track and tabs on all of the changes that go on with your kids, their grandkids, this matters. This keeps them in their home longer. This helps the financial stability of the community. It helps the social fabric of the community. And these things matter. And fourth, there is the issue of economic development. Whether or not you are getting companies to come to the area that have 1,000 new jobs, or if you're getting companies that already exist to add 4 or 5 new employees because they can now market their wares nationally or internationally, because they can take advantage of this newfangled thing called the cloud. It's not important that you know right now what the cloud is. Understand it is becoming a major tool of how folks do business. And you want that local retailer, you want that local, that person who makes goods to be able to use this technology to run a better business, because that goes straight to the economic bottom line of the community. And this is important. You want to be able to open up new opportunities. I've been doing surveys nationally, and one of the issues that comes up when you talk about economic development is the ability for people to start businesses at home. I'm doing a project in a small town in Iowa, 25,000 people. And in our initial survey, 25% of those folks have or want to have a business at home. Another 25% want to work and telecommute from their home. And this is a small town. I mean, you can see the other end of town on a clear day. And you wouldn't think that this is important, but it is. But it's also important because that's where the next generation of entrepreneurs are coming from the homes, from people with a great idea in their spare time, finding all these resources on the internet, and their ability to do video conferencing, their ability to run their business from the cloud, their ability to collaborate with other entrepreneurs across the U.S. is huge. And as they grow, the tax base grows, the community becomes more stable, and the community moves forward. The economic impact of broadband is not fully understood, but from the many cities that have their own networks similar to OpenCape, they are starting to talk about, and they're starting to demonstrate major significant economic advancement. Now, as your constituents understand these 4 areas, as they understand who in different parts of the country have become successful in transforming education, in improving healthcare delivery, in changing how the business of government gets done, improving how the business of business gets done, they then start to say, we want to do that. We want to be like Kansas City. We want to be like Chattanooga. And the energy level starts to grow, and the ideas start to multiply. And all of a sudden now you start to see where this technology can make a difference. Now, I've been writing about OpenCape since 2008. And the reason that this community came to my attention all the way over in California is because of the planning that was being done, because of the work that Dan Gallagher and others were doing in the beginning, before broadband was a national discussion, before there was Google Fiber, before there was the broadband stimulus. And I wrote about them and I talked about them because they were doing the one thing that many communities have not done, which is plan. Take the available information, gather additional information, and create a solid plan. Where do you go next? Where you go next is the education. Where you go next then is the plan. And as you develop the plan and you develop how we're going to move this thing forward, people will become your customers. Institutions will say, we want a part of that, and with that comes a paycheck. Businesses will say, we want to be a part of that, and when they become a part of your network, they're in it for the long haul, because a $5 discount on broadband services isn't going to matter to them, because their business becomes one and part of that network. And that becomes the financial sustainability of the network. And trust me, if you cannot make the network financially sustainable, you will not have a successful broadband business. Period. Discussion end. As you plan, you also need to think about, how many people here saw City Slicker? Don't be embarrassed. I mean, there you go, there you go. Remember, at the one point, Jack Palance says to our friend Billy, what's the one thing? Every network project I have seen that has been successful, after they've gone through the process of the brainstorming, after they've seen the big picture, as they have laid out all of the possibilities and gotten everybody all excited, they then come back and focus on one main project. With Chattanooga, their main project was to make their grid, their smart grid, more effective at delivering electricity. And you thought their big thing was all about, we want to be the first gigabit city. It was all about the smart grid. That was what drove them. That is what made the initial build out of the network financially sustainable. In Danville, Danville, Virginia, it was to attack economic development. In Oklahoma City, their network was a network built to facilitate public safety. Everyone has one primary project, and you've got to find what that one thing is, because on the back of that one initial project, you will build credibility, you will build the vision to see greater things, you will build the first level of financial sustainability, the first return on investment for the network. So you're going to have to work and try to figure out, and it'll be different for every community. Okay, every community is different. I tell people, I don't stand up here and give you the answers. You need to know the questions to ask to come up with the right answers for your community, to find that one thing that launches that project forward. And then, when you have done all of this, and it may take you a couple of months, be patient. Neither Rome nor great broadband networks were built in a day. All right? But trust me on this one, when you rally the folks behind the project, when you rally them behind the vision, when you make those folks, your neighbors, your businesses, your elected officials, understand and believe in the network. You've got to believe in the power of broadband. Now, it won't do everything. It will not allow you to walk on water. You will not be able to part the Red Sea. You will not calm the oceans. But there will be benefits that will make every bit of this effort worthwhile. I was very awed to see all the folks that were in here, and I know some of them didn't have the faith to hang on to the bitter end, but you have hung with me. You have now heard the word. You have been, tell them what they have missed. But the key thing is that you got these people to come together on a Friday afternoon in between all kinds of downpours and rainfall and all that kind of good stuff, because they sort of understand that this has value. They start to begin to believe that, well, maybe there's something here. You have got to pick up on that, and you've got to be committed to the process. And like I said, the road may be long. Your work probably will never, ever really be done. But there will be milestones, and there will be wins, there will be successes. Yes, there will be failures. You will probably hear about them and read about them. That's fine, because without the failures, there will not be success. But without the belief in this, there will not be success either. Without rallying your colleagues and your constituents and your neighbors together, there will not be success. Now, you have made a great investment. I start off by saying you have made a great investment. You have gotten to the brink, and you have gotten at that point where people are engaged and they're interested and they believe. You're still sitting here. You must believe in something about that's going to work with this. Well, you've got to translate that on Monday morning and Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning and get the word out that broadband is going to make a difference in the Cape. OpenCape is going to be a success because you've got it this far, and you got people to believe and carry it this far. Now, to use that last 20 yards, the red zone, you got to take it across again and again and again. Now, how many of y'all ready to go? How many of you folks believe in this network? You're here. Oh, wake up, people, wake up! I know it's Friday, but just one more minute. Wake up, get motivated, make a little note in your smartphone, your iPhone, whatever it is that you have. Monday morning, your job, you got to make believers out there, and you got to get on the bandwagon, you got to get with the program, and let's make OpenCape rock and roll, because I believe in you guys way before this, and I don't want to be hung out to dry. People come back, well, what happened to OpenCape? You heard about them in 2009. What? That's embarrassing. Don't embarrass me. Please. I traveled a long way to get here. I traveled a long way last year to get here. All right? Make this sucker work. Make this sucker work. Now, last year I got in trouble by promising booze and food at the end of my presentation, and I don't promise you nothing today. Let's just get that right out there. None, but have a good time. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for being a great audience.
Thanks, Craig. That was really good, and I hope you will come back here again. Thank you all very much for being here, and I look forward to whatever happens next, because I know it's going to be even more exciting. Thanks.